Scandinavia at this point was Christian. Well, almost all of Scandinavia was. To the east, the Finns continued to worship their pagan gods. In part 1, I talked about the First Swedish Crusade in the 1150s. However, there's just one issue. Its historical accuracy is debated. Thankfully, these next two crusades, the Second and Third Swedish Crusades, have more historical legitimacy. Let's begin with the second one. Some quick background. After the disputed First Swedish Crusade, Bishop Henry of Uppsala began establishing the Catholic Church's presence in the region. However, traditionally attributed to January 20th, 1156, he was murdered by a Finnish pagan named Lolli. The Catholic Church would later venerate Bishop Henry. In general, the Finns were extremely troublesome for the Catholic Church, so much so that in 1171, Pope Alexander III wrote a letter complaining about the situation there, describing how the Finns harassed priests and only stopped when threatened with war. To make matters worse, in 1236, the Tavastians, a Finnish tribe, led an uprising against the Swedes. While the Swedes were able to crush it, they knew they had to do something. Important side note, while we're certain that the Second Swedish Crusade occurred, we don't know when. Multiple chronicles and modern historians' estimates all vary in timing. For the sake of this video, I'm going to cite the Finnish historian Jarl Galen and say that the Second Swedish Crusade occurred from 1230 to 1239, as it chronologically follows up the Tavastian uprising and Pope Gregory IX's call to Christianize the Tavastians. So what happened? Well, not much. The Swedes simply invaded and subjugated the Tavastians and constructed Ham Castle, which helped reinforce Swedish control over the region. From 1249 onwards, most sources accept that Tavasti and southwestern Finland were part of the Kingdom of Sweden. At this point, most of you might be annoyed. We don't know for certain that the First Swedish Crusade occurred. We know that the Second Swedish Crusade occurred, but not when. So where's the guarantee that the Third Swedish Crusade is any better? Well, good news. Not only do we know when and if the Third Swedish Crusade occurred, but there's an actual chronology of the war. The Third Swedish Crusade occurred from 1293 to 1295 and was fought between the Kingdom of Sweden and the Karelians, another Finnish tribe, with support from the Novgorod Republic. Early on, Viborg Castle was constructed by the Swedish Lord High Constable Torkel Knutsson as a base of operations for the campaign. However, 1293 wasn't all too eventful. The Swedish army placed a garrison at Viborg and returned home in autumn. The next year, however, was different. In March of 1294, the Novgorod Republic sent an army to besiege Viborg. The Novgorodians were set to capture the city, but on March 30th, 1294, the day they assaulted the fort, warm winds from the southwest partly melted the ice surrounding the city, breaking it. This meant that the Novgorodians would need boats if they wanted to assault the city. The Swedish revived later in the spring and captured the Karela fortress. This victory was short-lived, however, as the very next year, the Novgorod Republic sent an army to recapture the fortress. They succeeded, and only 2 Swedes were able to escape. Even though they were defeated, the Swedes weren't too worried, as they were still content with their victories from the previous year, and so the fighting died down, ending the Third Swedish Crusade. The Kingdom of Sweden and the Novgorod Republic would soon draw up a formal border between them. So, in conclusion, the Second and Third Swedish Crusades, while not influential, played a key role in shaping Northern Europe. Not only did Sweden extend their influence, but it also spread Christianity to the Finns and defeated their Novgorodian rivals. So, now that we have everything else out of the way, it's time for the grand finale, the Lithuanian Crusade. Until then, have a great day.